another murder investigation being launched. The car used in the double murder was later found, with it being believed that the assailants attempted to set it on fire, but closed the door, leading to the fire being extinguished. A few days later, Danish police raided an apartment in Aarhus, which is another city in Denmark. In the apartment, Makalele was arrested. Following this, the other attackers were extradited from Sweden to Denmark in order to face the charges. As remember, the crime was committed in Denmark, not Sweden, so chances are they would receive a way harsher punishment. This proved to be right, as in 2020, Makalele, as well as the other members, were given life sentences for the double murder. Rest in peace, both Faye and Gucci. Now, following this double murder, Einar, who I spoke about earlier, would be making a serious noise within the Swedish drill scene, releasing tracks like The Cat in the Hood, which was released in January 2019, and quickly built a buzz in Sweden, garnering around 13 million views. He then dropped a track titled Cheating, featuring a rapper known as K27, this sitting on just over 5.5 million views, just proving that Einar was really taking over the scene. In November 2019, Yasin was released from prison following that 2018 arrest and sentencing. Perhaps following his release, Yasin realized he had to make it big in the Swedish drill scene, as following his release in December 2019, he dropped the track titled DSGIS, which sits on over 20 million Spotify streams. He followed this up a few weeks later with a track titled XO, this garnering around 40 million streams. And from an outside in, it looked as if Yasin had really made it out of the streets. However, what fans didn't know was that he was still really deeply entrenched in the gang politics in Rinkeby. In December 2019, a friend of Yasin's and fellow Shottaz member, known as Poi, would be found in his car in a car park within Rinkeby, suffering multiple gunshot wounds all over his body. Emergency services quickly arrived on the scene and did their best at saving him. However, sadly, he was pronounced dead minutes after being taken to hospital. The police in Stockholm went on to arrest multiple people, and what drill fans weren't expecting is that Yasin himself would be arrested in a car for the murder of his friend Poi. Yasin wasn't the only one arrested, and multiple other Shottaz gang members were apprehended hours following the murder, with a large investigation taking place. Yasin was even found to have gunshot residue on him. Following a full trial, however, in 2020, Yasin and the other Shottaz members were released due to a lack of evidence to find anyone involved guilty, with the Shottaz as well as Yasin being back on the streets of Rinkeby. Rest in peace, Poi. Now, remember how I said Einar was blowing in the Swedish drill scene? Well, going into 2020, he had managed to gain himself a few enemies from opposing gangs. These enemies then planning to find Einar in the streets, plotting out an attack on him. It was actually Einar's old friends from the Darlin network that would do this. This, of course, being the rapper Haval, who was at one point Einar's friend, and on the 15th of April 2020, Einar was lured unsuspectingly to an apartment where his rivals were waiting. On the 15th of April 2020, Einar would be lured into a car by the rapper Haval, as well as the leader of the Darlin network. Einar was then driven to an apartment in Stockholm. After a few minutes of driving, the gang members reached the agreed destination with Einar, who was unaware he was walking into a trap laid out for him. When arriving at the destination, Einar was held captive, and was punched, kicked, and was told to dress up in women's clothing, as well as to drink out of a dog bowl. All of this being recorded and pictured. Einar was then robbed of his chains and guns, and was let free hours later, luckily making it out alive. The videos and pictures of Einar being humiliated would later be released in May 2020. However, this didn't really affect his music career, as he was consistently doing millions on every song he released, even releasing a song with Haval, who had allegedly set him up only a day after Einar was kidnapped and was humiliated. Haval and other gang members were then later arrested and charged in connection. Following this, in May 2020, Einar responded to the kidnapping on an Instagram Live. Just a few months following the kidnapping, Haval's little brother was shot and killed in Stockholm, with Einar being the #1 suspect, even releasing a song that hinted toward his involvement in the murder. In August 2021, two FLG members, who were younger Shottaz gang members, were fed information that DP members were in an apartment in Hulsta. The two FLG members then set out on electric scooters toward the apartment. The Death Patrol members knew that the FLG members were coming, however, and waited on a balcony for their arrival. Upon arriving, the two FLG members were shot multiple times. A 26-year-old died seconds after being hit, whilst a separate 22-year-old was taken to hospital, where he luckily survived. This 22-year-old was later arrested and charged, as he had come to the apartment armed with a gun, and had intentions on killing the rival Death Patrol members. Rest in peace. In September 2021, Einar released a track titled Dance, this currently sitting on around 36 million views. Just a month later, in October 2021, he released a song that roughly translates to Stuck in the Hood, this amassing just over 16 million streams, really showing how prominent Einar was in the scene. It is rumored that police wanted Einar to cooperate in the case in which he was kidnapped, kidnapped, although Einar refused, eventually allegedly being forced to by police on the 21st of October 2021. Sadly, however, only a few hours later, Einar would be shot dead by rival gang members. On the 21st of October 2021, Einar would be hanging with two others in a relatively wealthy area in Stockholm. The trio were allegedly out for a smoke session before returning to Einar's home. Suddenly, however, two masked gunmen approached Einar before shooting multiple times toward him. Both friends would flee after the shooting. Sadly, Einar was hit multiple times all over the body, dying on the scene, with some even taking pictures of his dead body after he had been shot. With it being believed that Einar had money on his head, many theories surround the death of Einar, with some believing he was set up, whilst others have differing opinions. His killers, however, are yet to be arrested and charged. Either way, rest in peace, Einar. One of the people allegedly arrested in connection to the murder of Einar was his friend Dumla, who was even with him the night he was shot. Dumla was eventually released under investigation, but later in 2022, he was also shot dead. Rest in peace, Dumla. As of most recently, Shaki, who was that younger Death Patrol member who served time for killing a Shottaz affiliate known as Hamza, would release a track, which roughly translates to The Scorers. This track is filled with disrespectful lyrics. Within this, Shaki says that he is willing to go back to jail and risk life imprisonment, as well as stating that he was 16 years old and putting in more work than his ops. As remember, Shaki was only 16 when he caught the murder case. In May 2024, Shaki followed this track up with another song titled Prime Time. Within this, Shaki mentioned that he was smoking Peps Pure, without any mixture, Peps or Hamza being the dead rival that Shaki was sentenced for killing. It's since believed that both Yasin and Haval have moved away from Stockholm and are focusing on their rap career elsewhere, which is always positive, as both rappers were raking in millions of views on almost every song they released, and staying in Sweden would have only resulted in them either dying or going to jail. Now, since the murder of Dumla, not many other public incidents have occurred within the streets. If you have learned anything from this video, however, make sure that it is to stay out of the streets, as this gang lifestyle that you see these rappers living often only leads to jail or death. Example being Einar, who didn't distance himself from the gangs in Stockholm, and by the time he realized he should have, it was too late. Oftentimes these rappers have lost most of the people around them to the gang life. My thoughts, prayers, and condolences are with the family and friends of anyone discussed within this video. Rest in peace. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. As I said at the start of the video, only 5% of people are subscribed, so feel free to subscribe as it goes a long way.